Rustom, July the 19th is now a matter of days away, and a lot of employers will be expecting employees to return to the office. And of course, most of them have been probably at home over the last 14, 15 months, working away and working very productively and well at home. I think my first question is can an employer insist that their colleagues return to the office from the 19th? And perhaps also, what rights do the employee have to say, no, I'm going to continue working from home perfectly well?
Okay, thanks, Chris. There's a lot in there. So I think the starting point is that the employer can expect and require the employee to turn up for work at what was their normal place of work on the 19th. But I think that has to be heavily caveated in that it'll be the employer's responsibility to be able to show that they have carefully carried out a risk assessment in relation to the workplace and that they have taken suitable measures. Now, what gets trickier is that it appears at the minute that the government is saying that there will be relatively few formal requirements or restrictions in place. But I think what will happen is there will be a swell body from employees saying, well, we've had this terrible pandemic and we're still in it. And what sensible measures are you, the employer, putting in place to ensure that we have a safe system of work and a safe working environment? So again, I think if the employers haven't already started talking to staff, doing that assessment, doing those things, they will probably struggle to be able to get everybody back in an orderly fashion on the 19th. And in fact, what we're seeing quite a lot, I think, is this period sort of over the summer and until the schools are due to return, of a lot of employers doing it in a relatively sort of softly approach. And I think it'll probably be September when a lot of organisations say, right, well, we do now expect you back into the office. So that's the employer side. On the employee side, I think it's kind of the flip side of that. I think similarly, the employee will generally struggle to point blank say, well, thanks very much, but I've got used to working from home and I like that, and I'm just going to stay here. But I think their argument can legitimately be twofold. One is essentially, do I need to be in the office all the time and every day? And can I effectively work remotely? But I think in the short term, again, they will legitimately be asking and saying, well, okay, but what are the safety provisions that are in place? Because I think what we are seeing already is employees concerned about the behaviour, actually not so much of the employer, but of some of their own work colleagues in terms of how much perhaps precaution they're taking. And so the concern that if they know they've got colleagues who are maybe perhaps particularly whether it's skeptical of the vaccine or just generally of whether it's wearing masks in kind of communal or tightly, sort of knit areas, or just general, frankly, personal hygiene, you can see that employees potentially get quite twitchy about that. And so if, unfortunately, it'll end up being the employer that effectively has to sort that out.
Because there is, thinking about the office space, I'm not aware of any, template or any model that explains exactly what a COVID secure environment looks like. I mean, what sort of steps, to what extent should an employer be going to help ensure, they can't obviously completely ensure, but help ensure that sensible precautions are taken?
Well, I think we have something of a template already, to be fair, in place for different working environments. And the office, it tends to be the issue of sufficient social distancing, of ensuring that there's appropriate and adequate, or additional in most cases, ventilation, that staff are expected to sanitize. Perhaps when using the loo, there'll be a limit on the number of people in the loo, number of people perhaps in the office kitchen, and all of those things. So I think we've got something of a kind of a sensible template there. Of course, it's that thing between, well, should the social distancing be 1 metre and 2 metre and those things? And when we're looking at sort of desk layouts, trying to have people back to back and side to side rather than face to face. So it's those kinds of measures. And I think if the employer's made a decent stab and genuine stab at that, as it were, and can show the documentation and the assessment, and at the same time, I think be able to show that they clearly explain to employees what's happening and what's expected, then I think the employer is in a much stronger position to be able to say, well, we do expect you to come in. And similarly, the employee, because really for the employee, what they need to be able to show if they're not going in, if it really gets to sort of serious litigation, is that they think there's a serious and imminent danger to them and to their health. Now, nobody can say COVID hasn't been serious, and nobody can say it's not imminent. Question is, in the workplace and in that environment, is the employer able essentially to kind of displace that potential sort of view or the potential concern that the employee might have?
You can certainly see the HR department being very busy in terms of people knocking on the door, being concerned about colleagues who, as you described, take a more, so I suppose, laissez-faire approach to hygiene and their whole attitude towards the coronavirus.
Absolutely, and we're seeing that. I mean, I'm seeing that with clients, colleagues are seeing it. Yeah, and absolutely, HR get caught there. I mean, you've got probably the facilities and health and safety people doing the kind of risk assessment piece, but definitely for sort of HR, it's that handling the nervousness, the genuine nervousness of some people. And of course, part of the issue is it's not just the workplace. For those people that are working in urban centres, it's all about public transport. And we know that previously, as it were, when we've been in between lockdowns, people have nevertheless been very, very reluctant to get on crowded public transport, tubes in particular, in London. So I think, yes, HR, unfortunately, do have a bit of work to do in that sort of calming. And of course, the employer can't control what happens on public transport. So yeah, it's a tricky balance and it's a work through. But I think the expectations there are very much the thing about, staggering start times and that sort of thing. Although who knows what the new rush hour will be going into and out of London, because in a sense, everybody's trying to play the same game. So, and of course, the trains have reduced in frequency.